digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.
Dumb Radio.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. I asked Mr. Grant Stern here to give me a little more time here, so thank you so much. Grant Stern from thesternfacts.com. You can find him also on Verified Politics. His big website is grantstern.com. And Grant, thank you. I think we're in Pulitzer Prize territory here. I'm enjoying this show more than I have in a very long time. I love this stuff. Yeah, I love this, man. I'm a little too excited. Let me ask you a question. What happened?
Well, it's one of those things. I just I don't play any games. I don't have, I don't have an agenda here. I just follow the facts.
Yeah.
I understand the facts, and I bring a financial point of view to all of this that I think is just lacking. In finance, you have to really expand your horizons. People don't appreciate that being a mortgage broker is being in finance, but 99% of my colleagues from 2005 are now doing something else. And there's a reason for that, because, to have a financial outlook, you have to be able to evaluate the worst case scenario. You have to have a broad knowledge of the facts and the ability to cut out the chaff. It's not easy, and it's what I bring to reporting that I think other people don't.
Hey, I'm guilty of that. Just what you said, I'm guilty of, because I knew you were a mortgage broker. I know you were in the mortgage business before you came on the show. And as you started talking, you were describing this oil deal. I was thinking, well, is this guy an economist? Does he have a background in because I could tell you knew what you were doing, So, but I guess. Long before I did any writing or public reporting or any of that.
And you can see this on my website. It's morningsidemortgage.com. I think there's some sort of, let me see if it's all working, because I've had some issues with forwarding lately. But morningsidemortgage.com, you can take a look at the media section. And, I've been in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, on CNBC, on Bloomberg TV, as a source for them, explaining financial stuff. And, it's just one of those things. If you want to do this and you want to get into it, it's very easy. Just stop liking sleep. Yeah. Work late, read until 3 a.m, go to sleep, wake up at 7:30, get to work. Okay? You'll within a short period of 10 or 15 years, you'll become really knowledgeable, I swear.
Math was never my But no, let me ask you a question, because we were talking about how you had a parting with the HuffPost, but also too, sure, CNN reported on this and they issued a retraction. Am I correct about that?
Okay, so CNN reported something and issued a retraction. That was Eric Lichtblau. And I'm just going to tell you right now, Eric Lichtblau is on my least favorite people list.
Okay.
Because he was a reporter for the New York Times, a former winner of the Pulitzer Prize. And in November 1st, he wrote that the FBI was not investigating Donald Trump. And it was what you call a shoot-down story. Okay? He literally wrote the story to shoot down others reporting, namely Franklin Foer and Slate, David Corn and Mother Jones, and I think NBC had a report out as well, all of which were accurate. But an FBI agent said, yep, we are investigating Trump. We want you to lie. Keep it a secret. So he did. We found that out because the New York Times had what's called a public editor. Her name was Liz Spade. Liz has moved on. She now works for Facebook. And Liz wrote a wonderful column that they released January 20th at around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And the column was, New York Times knew about the Russia story, and we lied about it. to you guys and hid it. I mean, that's not the title, but that was what the gist of the story was. That, this guy Lichtblau he knew about it. He was asked to lie. He lied. And, you wanted to talk about the mainstream media, and let's talk about that. I'm going to talk about Huffington and why I'm not with them anymore. So I wrote that lengthy story, the Trump-Russia dossier decoded. And, of course, Qatar was the buyer of those shares. And just to cap it off, I'm just going to tell you there's a lot of talk that it may have been more like a bridge loan from Qatar. Like Russia could buy back the shares later. Certainly a possibility. Qatar's investment fund bought a quarter of the St. Petersburg airport not so long ago. They've been getting more involved with Russia. Yet they have ties to the United States. That's where the largest Middle Eastern military base is located, in Qatar. And if you recall, a few months ago, Trump started taking in a lot of cash from the Saudis through his hotel. And then, there was a war, basically, a Cold War, suddenly between Qatar and the rest of the Gulf Arabs, all of which are important U.S. allies. And it's because they viewed Qatar as getting too close to Iran. And, of course, geographically, they are close with Iran. They're like the closest Gulf nation to Iran. And there's all sorts of other things going on there. But, my story pretty much said, look, Qatar is known as a terrorist financing, a country where terrorist financing is arranged. This is widely known. I mean, there's scholarly work on it. This is not like me making something up. Even though they're our ally, it's a very, very small country, and there are competing interests within the country, and that's just how it is. So they pretty much, after 4 years of writing, called me up and said, we don't think this Democratic coalition is a real thing, after I wrote 8 stories based on Democratic coalition reports, all of which have held up over time, none of which have been shot down or even critically challenged or questioned, except for one. And that one was about Cyprus. And the editors had said, hey, here's what we got. And I said, look, here's what the Guardian reported. Here's what this, here's that. Yes, Cyprus shares a religion with Russia, the Orthodox religion. It's a tiny island. It's overflowing with Russian money. They signed a deal with Putin to allow them to dock their ships. I mean, there's undeniable contacts here. There's influence. There's cultural links. Cultural links would be religion. And if you know anything about Russian religion, it is kind of purchased by the Kremlin and has been for a long time. Okay? They are involved in it, and there's no question about that. That is not my reporting either. Now, flash forward to maybe I want to say maybe a few months later. There's a story that Huffington Post published called Trump Says Qatar Funds Terror. Here's his record of trying to get it to fund him. The president is allying himself with those blockading the tiny country, but he's made attempts to secure Qatari investments in the past. And let me just tell you, Jared Kushner asked them for $500 million. Remember we said put that $500 million on hold?
Right.
As a financial person, I can tell you, a low-cost loan for $500 million is no different than getting paid $500 million, especially when you're desperate for money. Jared Kushner is desperate for money to bail out his 666 Fifth Avenue investment. And I think it's highly inappropriate that he would be soliciting a foreign nation while serving in an official capacity in the White House in that way. So anyways, they said no. Later, somebody from Qatar said, we would have just given him the money even if we would have lost some of it just to avoid this. But the Huffington Post took this story, Trump says Qatar funds terror, here's his record of trying to get it to fund him. They took it from Clayton Swisher. Clayton Swisher happens to be an employee of Qatar's official news source, Al Jazeera, which is not disclosed anywhere on this story. And it takes a lot of information that probably came from Qatar's government, because it was not public information before this was published. And, I think that is unfortunate, but I think that it explains why they were so eager to boot me for saying that something was wrong in Qatar. Yet they published stories from a Qatari paid journalist with secret information from Qatar about Qatar to influence the public about the situation with Trump, and they don't disclose that he works for Al Jazeera. That's a little bit odd. And, that's what you find with the corporate news media. You don't always know who owns it. You don't know every shareholder. There's corporate interests that oftentimes outweigh news interests. There's matters of reputation that they take in a different manner, like CNN with Eric Lichtblau and that retracted story. They just don't behave like an independent news organization. I was having this debate with BuzzFeed, with their media reporter, Craig Silverman, who I respect. I think he's an outstanding reporter. I think he wrote some flawed stories last year, which he's made up for with some outstanding reporting this year. About Occupy Democrats who I write for. But I told him, look, you see this as partisan versus objective. And that's because of your perspective working for one of these corporate media outlets. But I see it as independent media versus corporate media. When you're with the corporate media, you have different priorities. You just do. I've been fighting a Walmart project that has been illegal from day one in my hometown of Miami, just a few blocks from where I reside, since 2012. And believe me, Walmart only had the former mayor, 4 big law firms, and the former planning director on their side. It was not enough to win. And I've been doing that while writing and while mortgage brokering. You can imagine I'm busy.
And having a baby,
But my point with that is that, the news comes out, and then every time Walmart won something, Walmart coming to Midtown, Walmart, they've won. Every time we won something, the report, residents defeat Walmart, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
Walmart is coming. And it got to the point where they actually reported a story about a court judgment, and the report was 180 degrees different than what the judges ruled. You would think if 3 judges, not 1, not 2, but 3 judges rule something, a corporate media report should be able to accurately write exactly what they wrote, but no, they didn't. And again, it's indicative of priorities that come from beyond the newsroom. They're objective in their own mind, but they're objectively biased towards making money.
Now that explains
protecting their own interests, and that's how it goes.
That explains the media. But now what about the congressional hearings we have right now and the congressional confirmation hearings with Tillerson and all these characters? Rosneft is never mentioned. My guess...
It was mentioned.
Okay.
I would say that it was mentioned prominently in the first major hearing with the House Permanent Select Intelligence Committee. Adam Schiff, the Democratic congressman and ranking member of that committee from California, told the entire narrative, including Rosneft, and he did that at I think it was in March. I want to say it was in March. And, there's so much going on that it's hard for anybody to keep track of. But let's just put it this way. The congressional committees are trying to figure out how do we take this and turn it into effective legislation that does something. All right? And how much information can we kick up and then send over to the special counsel? They are interviewing people, and then I have no doubt that some of these interviews get sent off to the special counsel, who then plugs it into what they've got going on. I don't expect the congressional committees to arrive at earth-shaking conclusions, because that's not really their role. They're trying to figure out how do we legislate something effective that deals with the situation, and how much information can we unearth. They are there to create information that becomes public, whereas the special counsel is there to draw conclusions and then bring them to court and get some convictions, establish facts in the public realm, and we'll see what happens from there. But just so you understand, the special counsel investigation is technically being run under the auspices of the House Judiciary Committee. They forewent an investigation in that committee, which, by the way, is the only committee where a bill of impeachment may start. And instead, Robert Mueller checks in with Bob Goodlate and John Conyers, the Republican chair and Democratic ranking member, respectively.